Hi there, it's Polly here, with my old gaming pal Mr. Snoots. Someone asked me about actually my favourite kind of fantasy board game, and yes, it's an oldie, it's a goodie, and it comes with some stupid tales. Mine, and incidentally his, is yeah, our good old friend Talisman, and suddenly realised some people haven't seen it. Talisman, a classic. This is not the most. This is the 4th edition. There is a new edition out which has some small changes, which I'll explain to you. But in essence, it remains the same game. I like the new version slightly better than this older one. Not many changes, but the one change I think is just thematically important. So, what is Talisman, you may ask? I'm glad you asked. So Talisman is a fantasy board game where each person plays an explorer. You're exploring a fantasy land and you are trying to basically get through to this center of this very strange world represented by the board you're playing on, full of mystic locations. Each one of these sort of penultimate locations are difficult tests to get through, and to reach the final one you will need a talisman, a protective talisman that will protect you from the terrible fires of this inferno. You are trying to get the crown of command and reclaim the lost crown of the kingdom. Why I like the new version as opposed to this older version. The older version, what happened is, if one of you gets through to the crown of command, the game keeps going, but each turn the person with the crown of command just makes a roll against anyone else. They have to try and make a saving roll, and if they fail, they take damage. And he must do an attack every turn against someone, and the game just goes on until there's only one person still alive. So it's a vicious competition. The current version does not do that. It is nice. It is more like Aragorn reclaims the kingdom. This guy now has the crown of command, and you know, there are now bunnies hopping about and field mice having a great time, and you know, cool elven women will suddenly you know, turn up and wish to be your bride. Fantastic. Just like the latest goth convention. But I think that's a better end, because the putting the whole thing into this vicious, mercenary, nasty opposition, it's a nasty end. No, I don't want to go through Fantasyland so I can kill everyone around I don't want to butcher people, thanks. I would just like to make things better. It's a really nice little game though. The board is the core to it, and it's obviously a big thing. Keeps folding, keeps folding, keeps folding, keeps folding, keeps folding, keeps folding. But, haha. So you can see it is enormous. You'll note, my friends, it is done in 3 rings: outer, middle, and this inner section here. There are places that link across. There are bridges and so forth. Each of these places has a name, and they have written instructions for what happens when you get onto that square. So it is a place that has a lot of sort of variety to it as you wander out. The outer ring tends to have some rural areas and towns, and it's got some forests and some lairs, some spooky bits, but and a couple of, you know, places that are unpleasant deserts and so on. So it sets up in areas, so you can get kind of caught in areas that have a certain character or a certain, you know, annoyance to them. But there are choke points. So on the first level, there is a river which separates you from the second layer of the world. There is a bridge which crosses that, which has a sentinel on it, and that thing is it's a bitch. You are going to have to build your character up to be strong enough to overcome the sentinel and cross. Unless you can do things like, in some places you get the ability to make a raft and cross, and there are also a couple of encounters which can just put you across the other side. The middle ring is much tougher, and it tends to be wastelands. What do we got? Warlocks' caves and ruins and cursed glades. You know, and it's nastier. It tends to be much nastier. And then the middle area is unusual, because in the other ones, when you get to a place, the thing will show you it could indeed have it'll have encounters. The final area, the central core, doesn't have encounters, it doesn't have treasures, it doesn't have any of these things. Each location is a test that you have to pass. you go through these tests one by one in this kind of grueling Deathmatch 3000, and you have to be extremely tough to have gotten through there. You will need magic items, you'll need to build your character up, otherwise these things will grind you down. Finally, the final location, you have to pass through this inferno. You can only pass through this inferno if you've got a talisman, which is a magical item that you pick up, and they're rare. Then you can get this Crown of Command and win the game. So, obviously the purpose is get tough enough to get into the areas where you might be able to pick up a talisman, and then get into that area in the middle with your character in a state strong enough to pass these tests and win the game. Your character is pretty simply rated for their strength, their craft, which is their wit, their cunning, and their strength of mind, and their lives, which is just how many hits they can take before they drop stone dead. There are different characters, so there are elves, there are sorcerers. They're quite fun actually, and they have different starting and max values for things. So pick a character. People just kind of start off in a starting location on the outer area. Right, the other thing that you get rated for are fate points. Now, fate points are used to change dice rolls. You spend one and you can re-roll something. It could be a movement dice, more on that in a minute, or it could be a combat dice or a dice that you roll for a test. So, the game. You roll off, decide who gets to go first. When it is your turn, you take your character, you roll an ordinary 6-sided dice. You must move that number of spaces. You can go left or right, or if you've got the movement, you can go across bridging areas and so on, if you can afford to do it. But you must make that number of moves. It's not that number or less. So this can land you in some sticky places, which is why you might want to use that fate point sometimes to change those dice rolls for movement. When you get onto locations, the location actually has a written up series of things that you do. Some of them will tell you to draw cards. Some of them will have special things that you can do, like some of these places might be markets where you can buy and sell. So, for instance, in the outside here, there's a chapel. Now, your character, you are of good or evil alignment. So it will say, it's based on alignment. Good, you can enter here and you can heal life. And it gives you a little roll to see how much life you gain. Or if you're evil, you lose a life. Oh, right. So you don't want to land on the in the holy ground of the chapel if you're an evil, rotten person. The cards are encounters, and there's a considerable stack of these encounters. Very often monsters. It'll have a name. It'll have a 721. All right. First thing I pulled out was a talisman. There you go. Yes, they're quite small cards. But for instance, dragon. It will give you a name. It will give you its strength. And it will give you any special effects. So, once you turn a monster card or an encounter card up and it's a monster, you can sometimes evade the monster if you have special abilities or spells such as invisibility or sneaking or so on. These are things that you can pick up, so it might allow you to go. Otherwise, you're going to have to fight it. Now, if it's a physical being, be it a dragon or a minotaur or what have you, it will have a strength and you must fight it with your strength. If it is a spiritual creature like a ghost or a banshee or something like that, you will have to fight it with your craft. Your going to have to make a dice roll. You're going to add your strength to it. It's going to make a dice roll, which you have like the player on your left roll for you, and it adds its strength to that. Whichever got the higher wins. If the critter wins, then you lose a life. Though some cards might tell you that you lose way more. And that's it. You have been defeated by the thing. Yeah, so if you've overcome the strength of a monster that you encounter, or if you've used your craft, for instance, to overcome a trap or conundrum, you've won the encounter. You keep the card as a trophy. This is used for essentially experience. Now, some of these encounter cards that you've drawn are monsters, and if there are multiple monsters, you have to fight them one after another to get your way through. Some of them, however, are treasures. It's a monster and a treasure. Sometimes you might get lucky and you've drawn these encounter cards and it's like, oh, I just find some treasure, which is what everyone hopes for. Treasure with no consequences. Yahoo, I just picked that up. But very often you're going to have to fight your way through it, but that's kind of fun. When you get 7 points of strength of overcome monsters or craft of overcome kind of crafty monsters, you trash those in and you increase your own strength or craft, depending on what you trashed in, by 1. So that's how your experience works. That's how you get tougher. Some of these creature cards and encounters give you other effects. So, and you can find places that will do things like heal life that you've lost, or you simply gain life. There's a pool you can hang around in and try and get life. It can go above your starting level, so you can kind of tank yourself up on a whole bunch of extra life before you go out, if you can get onto it somehow, because you have to move the number you roll. So you can kind of hang around this pool, zigzagging back and forth, hoping that you land on it. But you can't just sit there going gurgle, 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 gurgle. But so the random spaces that you're going to land on and their effects, and the random cards that you were drawing and their effects are the heartbeat of the game. You can encounter other characters, other player characters. You can fight with each other. Wouldn't recommend it. It's no point. It just weakens you. But you can do. And if you defeat someone, then they tend to, I think they have to drop some treasure and run. There are also spells in this game. You find spells as rewards in encounters. You find them as encounter cards and all these sort of things. Anyone can use a spell. And the spells, again, they will have specific effects written on the cards, and you can give them a shot. You also get gold. You start off with gold. Everyone gets a little, and you can also get it during play. Sometimes you have places where you can gamble it. There are other places where it sells. You can sell excess items and equipment and get gold, and you can also pick up gold as treasure from things. There are some locations where you can purchase stuff, and that the gold is used to trash in for that. So it's a pretty simple game in its way, but it's enormously good fun. Other stuff, you can be turned into a toad. There are toad counters. Some magical effects or some encounter effects turn you into a toad. Turns you into a toad for a set number of turns. Your figure is now replaced by a toad figure, and toads can only ever move one space. And they are weak. You can go up or down in craft or strength as a toad, but when you turn back to human, you go back to the levels you were before you were turned into a toad. Bouncing around as a toad is pretty good fun. What else we got? Yeah, there are some places, there are some very special locations which are good fun. Warlock's caves and crossing over barriers and so forth, but everything's on the board, and that's what I like about this. It's really all on the board. There's no huge difficulty in learning how to play the game. The board is going to tell you when you move into a space any special effects. Some of them have got a chart that you roll on for certain things. Like I said, that chapel is different depending on whether you're neutral or good or evil, so that can be a thing. Some of them will have like a little shop where you can buy and sell stuff. Some of them will have a note on how many encounter cards you're going to draw in that area. you have limited points of crossing from each ring into the next one. You've got to be pretty tough often to pass the barriers between them, but sometimes you can luck it through. So the last game I played, I somehow managed to get into the middle area very early on, and it was actually kind of neat because everyone else is bumbling around outside, and yeah, there were less people to bug me. There's no one running onto your square trying to steal your stuff because you're in the middle of nowhere. But more dangerous. But consequently, sometimes better rewards. So this game has withstood the test of time. There are expansions for this. There are expansions that are extra characters. There are expansions that are extra sideboards that you can put onto this that give you extra side quests and areas. The game expands and expands and expands. So sky's the limit on this one. Once long ago, I was rather foolishly I was sitting at home and yeah, I was actually getting married in a couple of days' time, and I was just sitting at home, and a wargaming friend that I hadn't seen for a little while suddenly turned up at my front door and like, oh, hi, I haven't seen you in ages. Yeah, what do you? Oh, I'm just in town. I just thought I'd drop by for the afternoon and see you. Oh, okay, fair enough. So we're there, and then suddenly I knock on the door, and another person, gamer who I hadn't seen for a little bit. Hi, yeah, I'm just in town. Well, you're just in town. Hey, there's three of us. Hey, let's play a game. Let's play Talisman. So I started setting up the board, and then a couple of other local gamers and a few others turned up. And they turned up and looked at, hey, are we playing Talisman? Yep. So out came the boards, out came all of the expansion boards. There's like 3 or 4 different rings of this thing going on, and somewhere in the end there's about a dozen people playing, and suddenly one guy, a friend of mine, comes through the door with armloads of drinks and everything. Hey everyone, what are you all doing? Are you playing Talisman? What? This is supposed to be a Buck's turn, goddammit. And everyone looked, oh yes. Yeah. I would describe myself as an intelligent person, but at that stage it hadn't actually crossed my mind that, oh, this is why so many friends have accidentally dropped by for the afternoon. Oh, what the hell? Yeah, we played Talisman and then we did the Bucks party. I should have probably fled overseas just then, but whatever. Haha. Talisman has been going since the 80s. It's been going since the 80s because it truly has withstood the test of time. It's a robust, simple game that's easy to teach, but is amazingly good fun. You've got a pretty cool variety of characters that you can choose. You choose whether you're going to be, good or evil or neutral. Are you going to be this magic usury type or this amazing elf or what have you? They've all got different skill ratings. No one is wildly better than the others, but they've all got some really good taste and flavour to them. You end up in this really cool magical realm board, which is actually kind of a cool place. It's not a bad place if you ever want to kind of cheat run a D&D game and can't be bothered thinking of a world. Just use the Talisman board. Just like, okay, so you wander down. Ooh, okay, you come out of the village. Ooh, you've come to some sort of enchanted grove. You could literally crib it that way. But anyway, this good simple world with its incredible little encounter spaces and just that escalating difficulty as you come into the middle to try and reach your ultimate goal. And it really has that core thing of gaming, which is risk reward. At some point, if you feel you've built your character up enough, you will decide you want to try and do this glory run to go and get this crown of command. But it's a huge risk reward thing because you might start going for it and then take a couple of losses on these tests and suddenly look at it and realize diminishing returns. I'm actually losing characteristics I need to test against to get deeper in. I'm not going to make it. So you're going to have to pull out and build up again, go adventuring again. So that risk reward thing is really there. The number of times I've seen people go thundering in there to haha, look at me, I'm going for glory, and nope, they've screwed it, they've got to get out again. Or that's where their character died because they took the risk too early. So it's is that risk reward, but the replayability comes from the fact that there's so many of the combination of random card plus movement spaces gives you a very active world to adventure in. So a great game. The expansions are always worthwhile. This is it's not a short game. It's a game that you would play over an evening or over a long afternoon with people. Leave it set up if you wish, but this is like a thing you sit down and play over an hour and there's a winner. You tend to roam around for quite some time having fun adventuring, and it's fun. The combat system is fairly easy. D6, add the appropriate characteristic. Do you beat the other guy? Play any cards or spells that will help you out. You will find equipment, so there'll be things like there'll be suits of armor and so on that block damage that you might take or give you extra strength when you use these items. Simple, but jolly good fun. If you don't have Talisman, make sure there is a copy somewhere on your shelf. As my own strange misadventure shows, it is one of the great emergency social games of all time, and it's a wheeze. It's jolly good fun. There are a few games I would describe as a true classic. Talisman is a true classic. It did it all, it did it right, and it did it 40 years ago and is still going strong. One of the greats of the genre. So, thank you very much for listening, and we will go on. I just managed to go out today and spend way too much money on buying things like a couple of new role-playing games and so on, so for next time. Alrighty. Look after yourselves, everybody. Seriously, look after yourselves. Bad times mentally and physically for a lot of people out there. Take care of your mental well-being and take care of your physical well-being. And hey, preserve yourself so we can play around a games table together sometime. And remember, games are games of the realm you can go to when you need some extra spirit and some extra joy in your life. Look after yourselves, much love, and hopefully we'll see you around a game table sometime soon. Alright, off we go.